Hi everybody, welcome back on Study Room, and today we are going to do Chapter 2 Constitutional Design. Alright. So first of all, when we are studying about constitutional design, we have to study and start from the scratch. What is apartheid that people faced in South Africa? So, the practice of discrimination based on their skin color and race in South Africa was known as apartheid. So, they were racially discriminated through their colors and everything. Alright. The process of separating the blacks from the whites by separating the schools, colleges, university, transportation, and all kind of public amenities was called segregation. So they were separated from white people, and white people were considered superior to them. So what they have to face in the features of apartheid, it is clearly distinct to what all they had to face and suffer. Black skinned people were restricted from living in or visiting the white areas and needed permits to go there for work. So if you are around white people, you have to get permission. So white people were considered this superior. Can you imagine? Marital association between these two races was considered as a crime. What does this mean? This means that two people of different races cannot marry each other. Alright, so any kind of marital association was referred to as crime. Educational institutions, that is schools, colleges, alright, even trains. What do you mean by train here? Commutations, transportation, compartments and shopping areas were separated from the black people. Basic human rights were denied to the blacks. They had no voting rights in their own country. Can you imagine? They are the citizens of the country, but they cannot vote their leader. Struggles and against apartheid. How many people struggle against them, against these practices? And who was the leader who led the way to the success? In 1912, saw the formation of African National Congress for fighting against racial discrimination in South Africa. So even in their country, they were facing racial discrimination. To fight that all, we had African National Congress, that is referred to as ANC. With the intensity in the movement between 1950 to 1960s, leaders like Nelson Mandela, he's very famous, Nelson Mandela of South Africa, were jailed, and the movement again against apartheid was banned. So this kind of discrimination was so immense that the people protesting against were suppressed, and their protest was banned. The apartheid policy of South Africa was condemned. What do you mean by condemned here? It was criticized by UN. That is UN Charter. You might have heard about United Nations, right? So United Nations openly criticized about the apartheid policy towards a new constitution in South Africa, but they fought for their rights. These racial people, these local people fought for their rights and they won. So they demanded a new constitution. What was there in new constitution? The white regime changed its policy as a result of the increasing struggles and protests. And even white people came together and helped them, and they all were together in this, and they were like, yes, we have to remove this racial discrimination. And discriminatory laws were repealed. So all the laws that were that were talking about the discrimination and that were in favor of the discrimination was now banned. They were now not in function. Ban on political parties and restriction on the media were lifted. So what do totalitarian governments do? They ban the political parties. They put restrictions on media. And Nelson Mandela walked out of the jail as a free man after 28 years of imprisonment. Can you imagine? This man spent almost 30 years of his life in jail fighting for the struggles of his own native people. We should salute such men. Alright? So, on midnight of 26th April 1994, just like us, on the midnight of 15th August 19 47 we all got independence, all right. In the same way, on midnight of 26 April 1994, a new democracy was born and new flag of the Republican of South Africa. So ANC formed this Republican of South Africa. The new constitution was framed over a period of 2 years. They also took only 2 years by the African National Congress alongside the former government, like with the cooperation of the former government, because former government had accepted its defeat that had ruled throughout the oppression. The constitution made it clear that no policy of discrimination, like zero tolerant policy, like no discrimination would be tolerated now, would be ever practiced again. So you cannot discriminate us again in the near future. So why do we need a constitution? This gave rise to a question that why we need a laid down structure of how the country should function. So constitution does the job of building trust and coordination. People come together collectively represent the country. Alright, so they do the coordination among people so that they can coexist. We have all heard about unity in diversity. It decides how a government should be constituted and the decisions of power among various post holders, be it vice president, be it president, okay, be it prime minister. All their rights, their duties are mentioned in a constitution, how they would function. So, what is the need of constitution? It states rights and duties of citizens, lays down the limits to any government can use its power. So they decide the extent of the usage of power. The constitution helps people and governments define and work towards building a good society. So when there is a boundary, you know how much you can play and how much you have to act. You cannot go beyond the law. So there are certain rules and regulation even Prime Minister has to follow. Alright? The Indian Constitution, challenges in its making. What all challenges it's faced while it was being constructed, it was in the making. Right after attaining freedom from the British rule, making a constitution for a huge yet versatile country like India was not easy. As now we are correlating with South Africa. So South Africa was facing apartheid, racial discrimination, and it got independence in the year 1994, which is really very fresh. And after 28 years of imprisonment, Nelson Mandela came out of the jail and he was all ready to lead the country. While Indian Constitution also faced a similar thing. What happened that we were for almost a century, we were the slaves of British India, but now we came out of it and now we had to make our rules, our set of rules and regulation, how our newly independent country would function. So the country was formed after a partition and partition was based on religion by Pakistan. Of course, Pakistan people said no, we'll take away all the Muslims, and there were some Muslims that said no, we don't believe in it and we believe in the solidarity of the country and we'll stay in the country. Alright? On the basis of religious ground, the merger of princely states with India or Pakistan was uncertain. So almost all the country was with us, but there were princely states in between here and there, Nizam of Hyderabad and these Gad. Alright, so there were different princely states who were still in a state of shock and they were confused where to go. Should we be with Pakistan or should we be with India? Alright. So the path to constitution, how to make them all closer into one unit. The struggles of Indians against the British helped develop a consensus. What is consensus? When people come together and form an opinion against Indians about among Indians about what democratic India should look like. So they decided on their own together that how would a country function. The experience of having participated in ministries set up by the British government also gave Indians the experience required to draft a constitution. So people have participated in the civil services before also prior to the independence, so they had a legit idea how to make country and how to run the country. Alright, but still we were very new. So, the French Revolution, parliamentary democracy, and the Bill of Rights in the USA provided awareness of ideals with regards to framing the constitution. So, if you are thinking to make something, you should have an ideal in your mind how the perfect picture should look. So, here USA came in our safeguard. We took various rights, Bill of Rights from USA. We have got great learning from French Revolution, parliamentary democracy. All right. So Motilal Nehru, he was the father of Jawaharlal Nehru, and 8 other leaders in 1928, along with the INC, that is Indian National Congress Constitution of 1931, also inspired the makers. So they all came together, and these people, these were the special people, special mention to them. They inspired for the making of Constitution. So, the Constituent Assembly. Dr. Rajendra Prasad became the chairman. He was the chairman of the Constituent Assembly. Election to the Constituent Assembly was first held in July 1946, and its first meeting was held on December 6, 1946. It's very important deadline, you all should remember. The assembly had how many representatives? 299, from representing Indians across religions, regions, languages, alright, classes as well. So the constitution was adopted on 26 November 1949 and came into effect on January 26, 1950. So we have adopted some features in the November 1949 only because we have to run the country, and some rules, some basic guidelines have to be implemented as early as possible. So few things were adopted then and there when the completion of our constitution happened. So 26 November 1949 it was adopted, that we were very okay with it, that we have adopted it, but it came into function on January 26, 1950. Who was the father of the Constituent Assembly, you can say? So he was Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. He prepared a draft constitution for discussion. Alright, so the Constituent Assembly worked in a systematic, open and consensual matters. Each and everybody from different backgrounds used to discuss upon different issues. First, some basic principles were decided and agreed upon, and more than 2,000 amendments. So there were so many amendments. Amendments refers to as changes were considered, and constitution was drafted over the course of 3 years. So we had the research work of 3 years and we were done with it. Philosophy. What do you mean by the philosophy of the constitution? So what were the ideals we had in the mind while framing the constitution? So philosophies are the values and ideals which were the guiding principles of the freedom struggle and the basis of new India after independence. And the philosophies, what is the importance of preamble here? It inculcates all the philosophy in it. So they are embedded in the preamble of the Indian Constitution, and these principles have to be kept in mind while making laws and adding to the Constitution. So preamble gives you an insight how to go about a country, how to go about different rules, and the basic guidelines of the constitutions are discussed in the preamble. So guiding values of the Indian Constitution, who all helped us to make the Indian Constitution. So prominent figures were like Mahatma Gandhi, B.R. Ambedkar, Jawaharlal Nehru, brought ahead the ideals and aspiration for how India should be governed. Alright, the philosophy on which the entire soul of the constitution thrives, or like it is standing, the pillar is your preamble. The first page of the constitution is really very important and you all should learn it by heart. Preamble of the constitution. What does it say? We, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into sovereign, democratic republic and to secure all its citizens justice, liberty, equality, fraternity. And all these are discussed over here. In our Constituent Assembly, this 26th day of November 1949, do hereby adopt, enact and give to ourselves this constitution. So we have gifted it to ourselves. What do you mean by sovereignty? Sovereignty means we are together or we take decisions by ourselves. Nobody would interfere in our internal matter. Alright, so people have supreme right to make decisions on internal as well as external matters, and no external power can dictate the government of India. So government of India is very sovereign and nobody can interfere in it. What is socialism? So we are the welfare state. We take care about the welfare of the country. Wealth is generated socially and should be shared equally by society. So this is our principle. Government should regulate the ownership of land and industry to reduce socio-economic inequalities. So from the very beginning we had a wide disparity between rich and poor. So to end it we were following socialism. But we follow mixed economy. That is the basic knowledge you all should have. What is secularism? That we give respect to all religion and we do not interfere in the internal matters of the religion. We respect them entirely through the bottom of our hearts. So you can say secularism says that there is no official religion and government treats all religious beliefs and practices with equal respect. Alright. Democracy. What do we mean by democracy? That people enjoy equal political rights. You all had the right to vote, alright? So the government is run according to some basic rules. Government is accountable to the people. What is republic? The head of the state is an elected person. Alright, democracy means we can elect people. Alright, you can see that elect their rulers, they have equal political rights and government would run according to them. But still republic is something very special, that the head of the state is elected person and is not a hereditary position, unlike the monarchy. What is justice? That there is no discrimination. No discrimination should be done on the basis of caste, religion or gender, and inequalities should be reduced. Welfare of all should be kept in mind, especially of the disadvantaged and marginalized groups. Liberty is freedom. So there are no unreasonable restrictions. Reasonable restrictions can be sent. That means sometimes curfews are also set up. So restricting the freedom of people, but it is very reasonable because maybe because of some political rights and antisocial groups are there active on in the society, then only curfews are raised, so that can be considered under reasonable restrictions. But liberty means no unreasonable restrictions on the citizens in what they think, how they wish to express their thoughts and the way they wish to act. Equality is all are equal before the laws, be it the poor sabzi wala or be it prime minister, everyone is equal. So the traditional social inequalities have to be ended. Nobody is untouchable and the government should ensure equal opportunities for all. Now, what is fraternity? So, we all should have a feeling of brotherhood in ourselves. We all should have the feeling of unity amongst ourselves. So, all of us should behave as if we are the members of the same family. And no one should no one should consider each other as inferior and should not inculcate superiority complex amongst themselves. And now we move on to institutional designs. Institutional design refers to the procedure for selection of person who will run the government. So these tell us how the government, how the person would be elected and how the election commission would run and all that. It further determines who has powers in a country and the limits to these powers while making decisions. It also limits the power of the government by granting inviolable rights to the citizens of the country. So, some rights and some duties are also given to the people. So, now we are discussing about the questions. The first question is, what is apartheid? That is color based racial discrimination that we have already discussed. Alright. And how did it affect the native people of South Africa? What is happening over here is that they gone through the process of segregation and they had different educational spaces, they were discriminated against and they were not allowed to get into white people areas. They cannot marry each other like of different races. So these are the discrimination they had to face throughout their lives. And what is the purpose of the preamble of the constitution? Preamble is the soul, it contains the soul of the constitution. So it has the basic values, basic features of the constitution laid down on the first page of the constitution. All right, it has liberties, sovereignty, socialist, democratic republic kind of features of the country written very well on it. So with this, we come to the end of this video. We have discussed about South African discrimination, how they have to face, and what kind of country they framed, and how we came from being a dependent country to coming out as independent country and ruling our country through the formation of constitutions and by rules and by different features of democracy. With this, I'm ending the video. We'll meet again in the next video. Thank you all. Stay safe. Take care.